Hi, my name is Eva Sherman. I'm a wire and metal artist from Cleveland, Ohio. My studio is Grand River Beads. And today I'm going to show you some projects that you can do with jump rings. You may be familiar with jump rings if you do chain mail or if you use them for connections, but you may not be familiar with soldering them together as a metal smithing project. So today what I'm going to show you is just a very simple pair of earrings. And we're starting out with 16 gauge, and we've got a larger one that's probably about 11.5 millimeters, and then a mid-size one that's about 6.5, 7 millimeters, and then a small one that's 6 millimeters. So the sizes really aren't too important. It's the proportions and how you put them together. So the first thing that you're going to do always with jump rings is you have to close them, because as they're created, they're cut with a saw, so there's always a little bit of an opening. And so this one is big enough that I can close it by hand, but you always want to move it front to back. But while doing it, you want to apply a little inward pressure so that you close up that gap. So I'm going to front to back, and you'll hear a little click if you've got it close enough. Okay, so the rest of these I've already soldered together, so I'm just going to show you some very simple soldering techniques here. Solder, for those of you that are familiar with metal smithing, solder comes in several different melting temperatures. Traditionally, it's hard, medium, and easy, and what that has to do with is the temperature that the solder melts at. And the reason that they do that is because you don't want to melt your previous join when you're doing your subsequent join. So I use wire solder. It also comes in sheet and paste. I just like wire solder. It's just a personal preference on my part. But it all looks the same. So when you cut your wire solders, they all look exactly the same, so you don't know exactly which one is the hard, medium, and easy. So I actually don't use hard. I start with medium, and then I go to easy, and then I go to extra easy. So medium being my step one, I put one roll on the end of it. So I always know that if I've cut it off the roll, if it has one roll at the end, that's my medium solder. And then easy is my step two, so I put 2 rolls at the end. And then extra easy is my step 3, so I put 3 rolls at the end. That way I always know which solder I'm using, and I'm not going to melt a join that I've already done. So with this project only having 2 steps, I'm actually going to start with easy solder. So I'm going to pick up my solder that's got 2 rolls on it, and you just need very little amounts, like maybe 1/16 of an inch. So when I cut it, I usually use the flush side of my wire cutters, and that tells me exactly how big my piece of solder is going to be. And then because whenever you cut a small piece off of a larger piece, it does tend to become a projectile, so you want to put your finger on top of it. Okay, so I've got a couple of different tweezers here. Cross-locking tweezer is for hot metal, and then my little pointy tweezer is for cold metal. So first thing I'm going to do is pick up my little tiny piece of solder, and I'm going to dip it in flux. And flux is basically soap and water. It helps to keep your metal clean, and it helps your solder to flow evenly. And then I will dip the ring in where the join is, and I'm going to lay the join right on top of that piece of solder. Solder always flows towards heat, so when I'm heating from the top, I can get that solder to flow up. Okay, and just for your information about basic safety in the metalworking studio, you always want to hold on to your torch when it's lit. Make sure you're aiming it at the solder board, which is designed to absorb heat. And now I'm going to pick this up and I'm going to quench it, and then I'm going to put it into my pickle pot. And pickle is basically a mild acid which will remove the fire scale. Since sterling silver has some copper in it, it will oxidize, and so we would just want to take some of that oxidization off. And now I'm ready for my next step here. I'm going to solder these 3 pieces together, and so my solder is nice and hot, and so it should work fairly quickly. And then we'll rinse again, and then we're going to put these 3 pieces up so they're sort of tangentially lined up, and the joins are all at the top. Okay. And then I'm still using my easy solder, so I'm going to cut 2 small pieces and just put them right in the grooves where those 2 pieces are 3 pieces are touching. Okay, and then we'll put a little bit of flux on there. And we'll put our solder right in the grooves. I always tell students soldering takes 3 P's: patience, persistence, and practice. And now I'm going to keep my solder pick in my other hand so that if anything moves, I can move it back into place with my solder pick. And now I'm okay, and everything joined together. And so we'll quench this piece. And we'll put that back in the pickle pot, and then I've actually done this, done some step outs here, so we're ready to go right to the next step, which is texturing. Now when I do a lot of these pieces, I run them through the rolling mill because I like the even texture that it gives. But if you don't have a rolling mill, I'm going to show you a cheat way on a small piece that works pretty well. Put it between 2 steel blocks, and just, you might want to turn the mic down because I'm going to hammer here. And now I've got a nice flat piece. So the second last thing I'm going to do is I'm going to solder the tube bezel in place. These are pre-made tube bezels. They're 6 millimeters, and they've already got the seat cut into it. And so what I'm going to do, actually I'm just going to talk through it because I'm starting to run out of time. With extra easy solder, I would put a little piece right here and a little piece right here, heat it up, and then the tube bezel is right in the center. Then we would pickle that, and the last thing that we do when that piece comes out of the pickle pot, because pickle does a little thing to the metal, it looks a little bit matte. So I'm going to take my brass brush and I'm just going to burnish it, and this will help to make that metal look nice and shiny again. And then the last thing we'll do is we'll set the stone. So you'll need a steel block. We've got a 6 millimeter bezel, so we're going to need a 6 millimeter stone. And so the best way to put this in is to turn your stone upside down, turn the bezel upside down, and just pop it down in there, and it should lay down in there nice and flat. And then I have these setters. These are 6 millimeter stone setters, so with a chasing hammer, I'm just going to put this straight down on here. Give it a couple taps. And we are all set. So this is a very simple, quick earrings, and you can do this kind of a project with all kinds of different size jump rings. So you can see here I've made some different earrings, I've made some cuffs, some rings, some pendants. So you're only limited by your imagination.